Shang-Chi, what happened to you, dude? Like,
Real stunts, just like Jackie Chan might do.
yeah. As this is probably the most physical role I've done.
Oh my God.
What is going on?
Katie, you won the lottery. And now anyone with a losing ticket that kills you before sundown gets her money. Legally.
Okay, that's murder.
Oh, not in California. It's just a chance at the big time.
Obviously, it is a comedy first and foremost, but there is also quite a dark vision of humanity and of the future there, that so many people might be willing to commit murder for, you know, obviously a very large sum of money. How much is that kind of vision of the future one that you can see happening? Do you kind of share that cynical worldview that is there in the film in some way?
Well, to me, the movie isn't cynical. It's set up to make you think it's a cynical world, but you, as it goes along, you discover it's only the people who are buying into the lottery who are kind of the awful people, and then there's a lot more people who aren't in it. And that's why I think I loved it so much. Like, I love the Purge movies, and those are dark, you know? But the thing about the Purge is everyone's caught in it. But I really love this, that like, you volunteered to be in this lottery, and so it's kind of like, hey, if you're in it, then you're going to take the consequences. So to me, it's more uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
You like that?
There's some great action in the film, and obviously, Awkwafina, you've done some action before, but how much do you learn from kind of sharing scenes with someone like John Cena, who's obviously such a kind of combat veteran in a sense? Do you learn quite a lot of new stuff from working with him?
The one thing I did learn from John is like the seriousness dedicated towards safety. I think that, you know, like his background, it's very important in his his line of work to be safe and to make sure that everyone is kind of on their game, and nothing is, because if one piece is missing, someone can get hurt in those sequences. So he definitely taught me the importance of that, as this is probably the most physical role I've done. I've been in action movies, obviously, but this, you know, I didn't have to like train for that. For this, you know, I did take it seriously, and it was a lot of action. Got a lot of action on that one. Yeah.
She did it. I mean, she did 80% of all her stuff. She did.
Yes. The green screen car was good. Yeah, I did a lot of green screen rope work.
You're working the car.
No, there was no green screen. It was like a lot of practicals, all practical.
Yeah. I wanted everything to be in camera.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a fan of action movies that have a lot of CG in them.
Right.
So we wanted real stunts, just like Jackie Chan might do.
Yeah. And obviously the kind of the conceit of the thing where guns aren't allowed allows you to be very creative with the kind of the combat, and you know, we see all sorts of weapons from you know, chairs to waxwork figures even. Was that quite fun for you to kind of compose those scenes and decide what kind of strange objects we can end up using as weapons?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, I wouldn't have done the movie if guns were allowed, because then that's a whole different, then it's a very dark movie. And it's also not fun because, you know, A, it'd be over the second you start it, and B, it is that invention. And again, I always go back to the touchstone of Jackie Chan, who, his inventiveness of like whatever's on the set, and you know, the way that he actually shot those movies, he wouldn't, you know, they had much more time when they do those movies, so he would just show up and they would kind of choreograph it in the moment, and he'd like, oh, that ladder there, I'm gonna use this ladder and come up with this stuff. So for us, we had to be much more pre-planned, but it was just like, what are gonna be the most fun things for people to use as weapons that you don't expect? And what would be real too? What would you grab in the moment and try to use, especially if you don't know she's going to show up and suddenly there she is. You know, that's why we particularly like the dojo, and then the yoga studio, and then the wax museum, which is, you know, you're just grabbing anything you can find.
Like in real life, there'd be the prompter screen just like coming toward me.
That roll of tape over there.
Yeah, right.
And obviously interesting to see Simu Liu as a villain in this film, and Awkwafina, you've obviously worked with him a couple of times. Was that quite interesting to go up against him in this film rather than being an ally for him?
Yeah, I mean, like, I love Simu, and I feel like for this one, it's obviously a different story, and you know, he's a great actor, so it makes sense. But I did get some bizarre flashbacks sometimes when we were doing scenes where he was like especially very evil, where I was like, Shang-Chi, what happened to you, dude? Like, you know, but you know, I think that he does a great villain. Yeah.
I was interested as well that your screenwriter Rob Yescombe has got his background is in video games as well. Do you think that's something that comes across in the script? Do you think that's something that you can see that history within this film?
Yeah, I think that's what I really liked about the script too, is that it's kind of a big chase, really. One of my favorite movies is Run Lola Run, which is just like shot out of a cannon, just never stops. And I've always thought that's a really fun thing to do. I mean, obviously, you're gonna have to stop at some point to get to know the characters a little bit more. But in small doses. What I like is we just kind of keep the action going most of the time. And so I think Rob's history with video games and the way those are structured, it's always pushing forward, pushing forward. It's kind of, I mean, it makes perfect sense that good movie writers would come out of the video game world, because you want active, very forward-moving stories.
Yeah. In terms of the cast, obviously Awkwafina is front and center of this film. What made her, in your mind, the perfect casting to lead this film?
Yeah, well, I mean, she's really funny. She's very relatable. For me personally, she's a friend and somebody that I've always wanted to work with. But more than that, I just think, you live and die by the relatability of your lead characters, and especially in a comedy. You basically, the audience has to feel like that person is their best friend, that person is them in that situation, and acting the way that they would, and reacting the way that they would, and surprising them in a way that they think, oh, I could have done that too. And I just think Awkwafina brings all that to the table. She's just so lovable, but funny, and with an edge. And this character definitely has lost her trust of the world, and I think Nora's really able to kind of bring that suspicion and that second layer of just like emotional insecurity to the character.
Obviously, someone who's no stranger to big fight scenes is John Cena, and it's also been so interesting in the last few years to see him, really, showing his comedic instincts in so many different films, this one included. Yeah. What's he like to work with on set? Does that kind of comedic instinct come out just hanging around with him as well as it does, on camera?
Yeah, John is very, very professional. He's there to work. He is very focused, because the world he comes from, the wrestling world, if they're off a little bit at all, somebody gets hurt. So he's very much about making sure everything is running correctly. But he's really delightful. He's very very polite, it's all yes sir, yes, all this kind of thing. But then suddenly, like in a take, he'll pull out this improv. He'll just go off on a tangent about something, and it's just funny, like after he gets his nose, broken in that one scene of the alley, like him just screaming and yelling, that's all John just kind of coming up with these shit in my sneakers and all that, so you kind of, when you least expect he's gonna pull out something, because he's really good at like if I feed him lines, like just taking them and parroting them back in a way that he really makes them his own. So he's great at that. But so you're not prepared for when then he pulls out something completely out of the blue that you weren't expecting. And it's great. You just love the guy for it.
I think I read that the scene with Machine Gun Kelly was particularly a lot of kind of laughter and a lot of maybe corpsing and stuff. Was that a really fun scene for you to put together?
Yeah, that was really fun. I mean, because it was, when MGK came to the set, it was his only day on the set, and I wasn't sure, because I met him over Zoom, but I wasn't sure a rock star coming in if he was going to have things he wouldn't do, or have issues with stuff, and he was just there to play. And so the three of them, this whole thing where they're at the door and trying to get in, and it turned into this whole discussion about Nora and John pretending to be a married couple and having sex on his driveway, and then John's saying all this crazy stuff. It's a lot of it's in the end credits. I put it in the blooper just because we couldn't use it in the movie, just because it made the scene too long. But it was so funny. I was like, I gotta put this in somewhere, because they were just cracking each other up.